and welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Kaylee and this is Foodie Friday. This week I'm sharing with you guys my #1 meal prep breakfast recipe. Last week I shared with you my Whole30 approved muffins and I love those little guys, but to be honest, I usually have to eat them with something on the go in the morning. So this recipe is perfect. It's filling, packed with protein, packed with veggies, and it makes enough for both me and my husband to enjoy throughout the week. So we're gonna be making sweet and savory breakfast casserole. This recipe is Whole30 approved, paleo friendly, and gluten-free, so it covers a lot of bases. And like I said, it is jam-packed with the good stuff. So without further ado, let's get to cooking. All right guys, so we're starting off this recipe with sweet potatoes. You can use one large sweet potato or two smaller ones, or a medium and a small, whatever you prefer. Honestly, I like a lot of sweet potatoes, so I try to pick a large one and maybe a small one, but we're gonna just chop these up. There's no special way to chop them up, just get them cubed. I usually start by cutting my sweet potato in half and then cutting my half into thirds and then going from there. But I like a thick chunk of sweet potato in my casserole, so I usually use or make cubes about 1 inch all the way around. So once we get our sweet potatoes chopped, we're going to add them to a 9x13 baking dish. We're gonna coat these with about 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and then we're going to season them with just some salt and pepper. I usually do about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Once our sweet potatoes are nice and coated with our olive oil and seasonings, we're gonna bake these in the oven at 375 while we get the rest of our dish put together. I don't usually set a time, but I start to soften these just because you don't want a hard sweet potato in your casserole. So please be sure to bake these while the rest of your ingredients are being put together. Now that our sweet potatoes are getting soft in the oven, we are going to cook our breakfast sausage. So one thing I'd like to point out is breakfast sausage is very difficult to find if you're on Whole30. I know for me, we've moved to several different states and it has been so hard in every state that we have lived in to find a Whole30 approved breakfast sausage, just because we don't have like a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's or anything like that. So I've had to learn over the years to just make my own homemade Whole30 approved breakfast sausage. So that's what we're gonna do today. So we're gonna take a pound of lean ground turkey, or you can get lean ground chicken, either one, and we're going to season it. So let's get to cooking. All right guys, we're going to start by adding our breakfast sausage meat to a large bowl, and then we're going to season it with 2 teaspoons of poultry seasoning. So sprinkle this on top and we'll just continue to add the rest of our seasonings. Next, we're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of fine grained sea salt. Then we'll add a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, an 1/8 teaspoon of allspice, 1/2 teaspoon of fennel seeds, and these are key for that traditional breakfast sausage flavor. We're gonna add an 1/8 teaspoon of red cayenne pepper and an 1/8 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes. Now that we have our seasonings on top of our breakfast meat, we're going to mix these together by hand until well combined. Now that we have our breakfast sausage all mixed together, we're going to go ahead and brown it. So to a large skillet, add about 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and we're gonna heat this over medium-high heat. Add in your raw sausage meat and go ahead and start to brown this. We'll let this cook all the way through, and while our breakfast sausage is cooking, we'll move on to chopping our veggies. While our breakfast sausage is cooking, we can go ahead and chop up our vegetables. So we're gonna take 1/2 of an onion and chop this up. You can chop this as finely or as chunky as you like. I like a chunky vegetable in my casserole, so I'm gonna leave these pretty thick, but go ahead and chop up that 1/2 of an onion, and then we're gonna chop up some sweet peppers. I would say about a cup of sweet peppers, but one thing I really like about this recipe is very versatile. So if you like extra veggies, go ahead and throw them in. You really can't go wrong. So now that our breakfast sausage is cooked, we're going to remove it from our pan and set it aside. In the same pan that we cooked our breakfast sausage with, we're going to cook our veggies. So add another tablespoon of olive oil to the pan while it's still hot, and we'll add a teaspoon, 1 to 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. Go ahead and stir that around and then add in your chopped veggies. We're going to let these cook down till the onions and peppers are softened. Now it's time to make our egg mixture. So I usually like to do 6 whole eggs and a cup of liquid egg whites. You can use 12 whole eggs for this recipe. It turns out just as delicious, but I like to maybe cut out a little bit of fat, so that's why I do half and half. If you want a lower fat option, you can do an entire carton of egg whites and that will be just fine. It may not be as fluffy and soft as it would be if you included a few whole eggs, but it's still delicious. Add in a pinch of sea salt and a pinch of pepper, whisk together, and your mixture is ready to go. Now that we have our recipe components ready, it's time to assemble our casserole. So I'm gonna add 2 cups of spinach on top of our sweet potatoes. Then we'll add our peppers and onions next, and then our ground breakfast sausage. I always like to add my spinach first, just so these other ingredients can kind of weigh them down and they don't float to the top when I add my egg mixture. So we're gonna pour the egg mixture on top and try to cover everything as best as we can. We're going to bake this casserole at 375 for about 25 to 30 minutes, or until the eggs are solidified and cooked all the way through. Guys, so our casserole is done. It has cooled. I went ahead and sliced up a piece because I'm gonna be honest, this is my lunch for today because it just smells so good. So I'm gonna throw a lid on this after it completely cools and stick it in my fridge. This is good up to a week. I usually slice this into 8 equal pieces and eat 1 a day. Between me and my husband, this lasts us for about 4 or 5 days. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. It's one of my all-time favorites, and I hope that it finds a special place in your heart as well. As always, please be sure to give this video a like, as well as subscribe to my channel if you have not already done so. I look forward to getting together next week where we cook another fun, delicious, and healthy dish together. See you guys next week.